Okay, so let's keep going. Um, so now we can create brand new websites, and we can retrieve the websites for a user. Uh, but there are a couple of other use cases that we would like to be able to implement, such as being able to either edit an existing website or being able to remove an existing website. So let's first do deleting a website. Okay, so here we have a list of websites. And they're being rendered. Let's see, under the website view, website list view right here, and let's add a delete button. Let's pretty up this a little bit so it's a little more presentable. So we'll make this a list group, and let's paint this with a list group item. So it looks a little bit more presentable. There we go. And so let's add like an X or remove button on the end here after the name of the website, maybe something like a span class glyphicon. Oops, glyphicon with a glyphicon remove. Oops. Okay, there's the X, and maybe we'll pull it all the way to the right-hand side. Right, so it lands on the right-hand side of the website. So if we click on X, we might want to remove the website, right? So if we click on this, we can say click. We'd like to call the delete website, and we'll pass along the current website that we're iterating over. We're going to pass in website underscore ID, okay, which currently doesn't exist. Right? So let's implement that on the component, right? That the component's responsibility is to handle any user event, right? As they click, drag, type, interact with the front end. The responsibility of the component is to deal with that. Again, this is again a place where you have a boundary between two worlds, right? The human world that is generating these low bandwidth events, right? And converting it into an object world, right? And then delegating actions over to a completely different layer, which does a conversion again between two different worlds, right? Converted from object-oriented component world into a stream world, right? So let's implement the handler for that event, and we have the website ID that we want to remove as a string, and we want to delegate that to a service, right? So we'll say something like this dot website service. Again, delete website. Notice that I'm naming these the same, right? I'm naming the event handler for the component. I'm naming it the same as the function that I'm going to implement the actual removal, right? Again, just to keep it straight in our heads. And on the server side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to call it delete website, right? So that I can follow along the entire path of the execution. So delete website will take as argument the website ID, right? Again, this will go out asynchronous to the server. The server will respond, right? It's gonna a prompt is gonna come back, right? So I'm gonna subscribe to this, and presumably I'm gonna get the new list of websites, but with the missing, hopefully with the missing website I just removed. And I'll just update my websites with the new list of websites. Yes? Okay. But notice that it's broken. Right now it's broken because there is no delete website on my client service. So let's implement that. Let's implement website with website ID. Let's go to the website service client, and let's implement this, right? Which is going to take this as a string. It's going to create a URL, same exact URL, but this time, we need the user ID. We need to pass also the user ID, which we didn't. Let's go back to the delete website. We're going to pass not only the website ID, we'll pass also this dot user ID, right? Because we parsed it. That's how we got to this component in the first place, right? It's for that particular user ID. I'll pass it along to the website service. So I'll receive here the user ID, also as a string. And so it's going to be building the URL, and I'm going to tag along the website ID along with at the end of this, right? Now you could argue that I don't really need the user ID, right? That I only really need the website ID. Meaning from the whole collection of websites that I might have hundreds of websites, of which only a fraction of those are for this particular user ID. It doesn't really matter when I remove the website, since the website is the only one who knows who their parent is. Okay, it's enough with removing the record for the website. There's no need to know who the user is, who the developer is, right? I can just remove the website regardless of who the parent is. So you could argue that an alternative URL for this might be this, just /API/website, and then it's the website ID. There's no need for the context for the user ID. Okay, and this is it depends how you are. It all depends how the data model is being implemented in the database, right? If in the database it's very normalized, and each set of data, it lives in its own container, in its own collection or its own table, then this is fine, right? You know the ID of the record that you want to remove, that's all you need. You'll remove it. But instead, if they are embedded, right, where the subset of websites live under or embedded inside of the parent, right? So you only have, there is no one single collection of websites, right, where instead each subset of websites is embedded in the parent, then this would not work, right? There's no way to treat a website as an individual entity, right? You always have to go through the context of the parent, right? This is not the case in relational databases. In relational databases, typically, each entity is exists uniquely in its collection of rows in a particular table. Yes? And the only way to maintain relationship between parent and children is to foreign keys and primary keys. Yes? And that's what we're doing here. We have a foreign key referring to some primary key user. Okay? But later in next week, when we look at databases, right, we'll see that actually in non-relational databases, you have the alternative to embed children in their parents, right, and not necessarily treat them as individual collections. Right? So here we're going to use this alternative representation. So there's actually no need to pass in the user ID. So I'll just remove it. I'll remove the user ID. There's no need to pass it. Okay. Right. Again, it depends how you have the data model implemented. All right, so this is my URL. Let's now generate a put. I'll just copy this over. Right, and instead of a post, I'll generate a put. Okay, and the put, I'm sorry, a delete. What am I thinking? A delete because I am removing a website. And there's nothing for me to pass along. There's no argument to pass. There's no object data that I need to pass along. All I really need is the ID of the object I want to remove. I am not modifying it. I'm not creating a new one, right? I'm only removing an existing instance. So it's going to go out and remove it. Now, if we try to exercise this, and we go to the network. and I actually click on the X, notice that it complains. Right? If I click on any one of these, it's complaining, saying that all these entities, right, all these URLs you're using, right, they don't exist. These deletes. Wait a minute. Oh, okay. It's not even finding the URL for passing this along. It's delete, right? Dot delete URL. Okay. Yeah, we'll talk about options in a minute. We are using a mechanism called course. I think I mentioned it a little bit last week. That allows cross-origin requests, okay, and so to test whether a server will allow me to even send this URL, right? Typically, what happens is that the browser will send a query, say, "Hey, browser, is it okay if I use these operations?" And the server will respond positively or not. Okay, and this is what's happening here. It's asking, what are the options? What options do I have? What methods can I call? Typically, get and post are supported regardless. Okay, but not necessarily put and not necessarily delete. Okay, and since the server says I don't even see a delete here recorded, right? It's failing, saying that there is no delete option that you can call on this server, right? This function, this HTTP request that precedes the actual request, right? It's usually referred to as a pre-flight request, right? So, for instance, all these other ones where I create, notice there's two queries that happen here. See that? Two. The first one is a pre-flight. Same thing, options, which comes back saying, yep, you can call with a get. You can call for heads, and you can call for post. No delete, no put, because there's no puts declared on the server, right? And once the browser receives this, that I can send a post, it then actually sends the post. So here's the actual post. You see that? So there's first a query. Hey server, it is okay that I post? And the server says, yes, you can get, you can head, and you can post. Right? Also, when I do a query, well, we only see the get, but there's also pre-flight for the get that we don't see here. But for the delete, there's a pre-flight that goes out that comes back saying, nope, there is no delete and there is no put. I only get and posts and head. So to solve this, we're going to go out to the server. Let's go out to the server and declare a delete. And for the delete, we can say this is going to be a delete, and the API is just going to be website and the ID of the website ID. And we're going to call it the same way we called it on the client. Okay, and we're going to handle it right here. Request and response. We're going to extract the website ID from the parameters. It's a path parameter as opposed to a query parameter, and that might be next in the quiz. Is this a query parameter? Is this a path parameter? What's the difference? So request.params, and this might be we're going to retrieve and parse out the website ID from the parameters. And now we have the parameter we want to remove from the websites. Okay, the ID of that website. We're going to iterate over it for var I equals 0, I less than websites.length, and we're just going to look it up. Right? When we find it, if websites sub I dot underscore ID matches the website ID, we can remove it. We're going to splice it out. So websites.splice at the location I and just one of them, and we're done, right? And so we're going to respond now with the new list of websites. Well, actually, not all of them. We have, we do need the user ID, right? Because I want to respond with the list of the websites that are remaining. For who? For the user ID that I need to filter. So yeah, we do need the user ID. Oh, okay, shucks. Let me copy that. Okay, and so we will need that URL encoded in the URL. I was hoping to keep it simple. I need to go back to the client, and the client, the user, we do need the user ID right here, so let me just copy that. No, and no. And user ID will be passed in as an argument here, right? As a string, and passed in from the component, the user ID, this dot user ID. All right. Okay. All right. So on the server, let's go back to the server. Now that I have the user ID, we can then now get the websites for that user, and then just respond with those websites. Okay, we've got the websites, and we just want to return and break out of the if for loop. Otherwise, we'll just keep looping unnecessarily. All right, that makes sense. Okay, let's restart the server and try out the client. Okay, so let's refresh. There are my websites. Let's create a couple of dummy websites. And let's see if we can remove them. There we go. It's removing them. Notice that the pre-flight, that's a pre-flight. Now it comes back saying, yes, you can delete. It is okay to delete, right? And now it comes back with the actual list of websites minus the one we just removed, right? And it's returns and it remembers the session. That makes sense, right? The only one left to do is what if I retrieve that one website because I want to update it, I want to change its name, I want to change something, right? I need to go fetch it, right, from all the details, the name, the description, how many visits and whatnot, right? Because I want to edit any one of those things, and I need to go fetch it in database because I only have just maybe only the names of the website that I'm displaying. I don't have all that data on the client side, right? I need to go fetch it. So let's do that next.